And welcome into another episode of Denmark and Marsh. It is Friday, March 8th in 2024. And Trent Baalke, he is building the Great Wall in Duval, baby. We're going to run it back, I guess. Allegedly. I think. Graham, your thoughts? I'm just playing. This is the 1010XL podcast platform. I remember finally to say that we're on the 1010XL podcast platform along with Joe and Campo, Gator Bites, and all the other podcasts that Graham does. Graham finally can talk on this podcast and give his thoughts. Obviously, the Jaguars have made a lot of decisions this week because free agency will be next week. The legal tampering period starts Monday. Can be finalized next Wednesday. And then we can really finally get rolling with really the offseason and with the new calendar year and everything that we can do. I'm Dylan Denmark, the producer for Jaguars Today and Hacker After Dark. That is Graham Marsh, who does pretty much co-host all the podcasts, does sales, and a lot of the videos on social media. So, Graham, since we last spoke, we know Monday that Darius Williams was cut, Rayshon Jenkins was cut, and Foley Fatukasi was cut. Since then, they've extended Ezra Cleveland, which is a very, very team-friendly deal. And Brandon Sheriff, the details are not out yet, but he will get a contract restructure. So, all the talk of the offseason that we got to fix guard, center guard, and we got to fix the interior offensive line. We've heard Trent Baalke speak after the season, 3 weeks after the Titans game, that he kind of liked where everything was, and then they spoke in Indy, whatever it was last week, 2 weeks ago, and they kind of said, you kind of got the feeling that they wanted to run it back. Still no nothing certain yet from Cam Robinson's standpoint, but Ezra Cleveland and Brandon Sheriff are going to be your two guards in Jacksonville in 2024.
The host of the show that you produce, Jaguars Today, Mike Dempsey, said it best. He encapsulated, I think, what a lot of people are probably feeling in a sentence or two. I don't even know if he realized that he was kind of saying something pretty prophetic, in my opinion. He said it maybe yesterday, the day before, or something like that, when it started to really become evident, and not just the words they were saying, but the actions they were doing, that they were going to run it back with relatively the same line. Mike said, Trent Baalke, right after the season in his press conference, he said that the lines of scrimmage on this team need to get tougher. And now you're running it back with the same guys. So that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because they're not tough. Outside of Cam Robinson, none of these guys have the mentality of tough.
I don't get that. And what Mike said is absolutely true, because it's like, how can you... The only other answer to that is he's calling out the coaches and saying that they didn't get enough toughness out of their players. Is that what Trent Baalke was saying? I mean, it's not like Trent Baalke's not going to throw his coaches under the bus. He's been known to do that a time or two. So I wouldn't put that past him. But just in principle, it doesn't make any sense. How are you going to say at the end of the season, yeah, our main problem was we weren't tough enough on the lines of scrimmage? But then you're going to run the exact same team back. I don't understand that.
And the thing with me, I should have asked Leon this since I was doing a show the last week and a half. Like, I don't know of, and again, like, I don't.
Leon
most
Searcy,
people,
XL Primetime.
yes, sorry,
former Jags Pro Bowler.
I just figure that people know, but
yeah, they probably do.
Yes, thank you. But like, how many guys in the NFL have been in the NFL for a couple of years, just say 3-4 years, and then like their mentality changes? Like, I don't know guys off the top of my mind that go, yeah, this offensive lineman was, he was average, but then like year 4, year 5, he just kicked into a new gear and became a different player. Like, I don't know of those guys, and I don't know if that's something that you fix, even in coaching. Like, you can't, you don't change as a person.
Particularly when you're staying on the same team. Like, I could maybe listen to something like that potentially happening, and with a change of scenery, new coach, new place, new players around you, where maybe that type of thing could potentially change. But I know what you're saying, though. I hear the overall point. It's like, if you're not, and what we're really talking about is nasty linemen that like to kick somebody else's ass. And the feeling is that outside of Cam Robinson, and Brandon Sheriff is aging. The Jags don't have a lot of that attitude on their line. A lot of their guys are more so kind of pass blocking type guys, more technically sound, don't get beat type of guys, but they're not I'm going to kick your ass all day type of guys. And what you're saying is, does a player in year 3 or year 4 just flip that switch and decide that they're going to be that guy and it works? Not really, to your point. I agree with that. And I just don't know, to carry on that point, I don't know how next season these exact same dudes are just going to magically have this brand new attitude and run blocking and pushing guys out of the way, and that's how how is that line, how is a kick-ass line going to emerge itself from this crew? So I don't see that.
This is what I think that they're betting on. I think they're betting on what they saw 2 years ago, and they liked what they saw 2 years ago, and they're blaming everything last year on injuries.
Yes.
So 2 years ago, in rushing yards, they were in the top half. They were 14th in the league. In yards per carry, they were top 10 in the league with 4.7. Last year, they were bottom 10 in the league in rushing yards, and they were 3.6 yards per carry. That's bottom 3. I think they were like 30th. There's never been an offensive line that I can remember, whether it be Dallas from a few years ago, who else has been really good in the last couple of years? Atlanta, when they went to the Super Bowl.
Patriots during their dynasty had really nice line. The Eagles.
Yes, the Eagles with Nick Foles when they made their run. They can all run the football effectively.
Yeah.
So I get the sense that regardless of what Peterson and Balky are saying, that they're betting on, we think that we have the guys because we saw it 2 years ago and last year was a one-off. And we think that we can get back to that coming up this year if we can stay together, because we saw Doug Peterson say at the combine at the very end of his at his media when he was at the podium, his guys, he said Cam, Ezra Cleveland, Fortner, Sheriff, and Anton, those 5 guys only played one game together. I believe it was those 5 he named. He said those guys only played one game together, and that was at the end of the season. And now
against the worst team in the league,
yes,
so it wasn't a great barometer against Panthers.
Ezra Cleveland came here middle of the season. He was traded from Minnesota. He was already hurt, and then when he was playing, basically was already hurt. On top of, Cam got hurt, and then Walker Little, I think, was hurt. So you have all these things, but just because you're betting the fact that they were hurt, even if they were healthy, do you still think that you could have been able to run the ball effectively?
I don't.
I don't think either. I don't think many fans do. That's where I get to.
And my other issue with that whole principle as well is, and I totally agree with you, by the way, I think anytime Doug has spoken to the media this offseason, you've gotten the sense that, yeah, exactly what you just said. He's basically just acting like injuries made this season a one-off, and if we run it back with the same crew, it's going to be different results because 22 was better results when they were healthier. Here's the problem. Let's look at the offensive line, okay? Because that's what we're talking about, obviously. Who are the leaders on that offensive line, would you say?
Cam.
I would say it's Cam and Brandon Sheriff. Okay, they're the older guys in the room. They're vets. They've played a lot of ball in this league.
Sheriff's been a Pro Bowler,
right? Ezra Cleveland is still new to Jacksonville and not quite as, and he's a little bit of young. He's not a rookie, but he's a younger player. Anton obviously not, because he just came into the league. Fortner's still very young. Those 2 guys are who I would say are your leaders, right? Cam Robinson has always had problems staying on the field. He's always had injury concerns since he came into the league. And Cam's not an old player, but he's not a young player.
No.
I want to say Cam is 28, something like that. He's late 20s. He's been in the league since 2017, and there have been, I believe, 3 seasons in his career that he's missed significant time due to injury. And then you tack on the fact that he got suspended for 4 games last year. I don't want to hold that against him. It's just kind of when you
accumulation.
When you put that with the fact that he's always injured, that's a problem. Brandon Sheriff had some injury concerns 2 years ago, but he played through most of it because he's tough as hell. I'll give him that. He's tough as hell. Last year, he played through them again, but those injuries seemed to pile up more and more, and his play dropped. His production dropped. And he is an old player. Brandon Sheriff is what, probably mid to late 30s?
I think he's like 32, 33, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
Cam will be 29 in October.
Right, so obviously not late 30s, but you know what I mean. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. In what world are Brandon Sheriff and Cam Robinson just going to all of a sudden play all 17 games, no problem?
And put it all together.
That's not going to happen, dude. That's not, the probability of that happening is extremely low. And then you're also talking about the probability of that happening along with the assumption that Anton Harrison won't get hurt, the assumption that Luke Fortner doesn't stink, the assumption that Ezra Cleveland doesn't get hurt. Cleveland got hurt last year and missed some games. Anton hurt a shoulder last year. He was fine, but he still suffered an injury. I'm mostly fine with Anton, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah, the main five only played one game together. I get it, Doug. That's tough. But what makes you think they're going to play almost all 17 together next year? This is not a line of a bunch of guys that had never gotten hurt before and they just had one freak injury. You're talking about two stalwarts on your line that consistently get injured. Brandon Sheriff plays through all of them, but he's still hurt. He's still not playing at 100%. I got the sense Brandon Sheriff was playing at like 50% last year. And he was out there because he's that tough and he'll just get through it. But he wasn't very good. In what world are they going to turn that around?
Yeah, and there's a difference between playing hurt and performing and playing hurt and not playing well. This is, to add to your point, if Jacksonville doesn't have a good year meaning they don't make the postseason. They finished third in the division. They missed out on the postseason. They have
9 and 8.
Sure.
Yeah.
They have 8 or 9 wins.
With a division that should be better next year.
Correct. Peterson and Balky are both, like, this is put up or shut up time. Like, if this is not a good year, they're getting let go.
100%.
So they're not only betting, but they are fully confident in, okay, this is going to be my offensive line moving forward. In a year that Trevor didn't play as well, yes, because of the offensive line and everything else around it, but it's like, man, you're putting all your poker chips in the middle of the table and you're going all in. You're saying, okay, my job is on the line and this is who I'm going with. That's kind of the big picture for me for this, because I got news for you. Like, if Trevor doesn't play well, everybody's out of the building.
100%.
And if Trevor plays well, everybody's getting an extension.
100%.
And a lot of this has to do with the offensive line.
Yep.
Like,
all of it has to do with the
blank.
offensive line. It all has to do with the offensive line. Look, even if Calvin Ridley is not here, which I don't believe he's going to be at this point, 2 years ago, your squad of weapons was Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne.
Marvin Jones.
Most of those guys are still here.
Yeah.
I tend to think if Calvin Ridley gets a big deal somewhere, I think they're going to bring Zay Jones back. I don't think they're going to let both of those guys leave, in my opinion. But 2 years ago, they were able to protect him, at least better. And he played a lot better. This past year, not only was he not protected, so plays broke down quicker because he didn't have the time, but by the end of the year, Trevor was broken in half, man. He had like 400 injuries that he was suffering through. You can't be shocked that he wasn't playing well.
And you can't, and not only that, at that position, you can't be confident in a lot of the throws that you make when you know you're constantly getting pressure in your face.
And look, like, we understand that in the NFL, by the end of the season, every player in the entire league is banged up. Okay, they're playing through something, right? No one's 100% totally fresh unless they were suspended or something. No one that's been playing ball all year is completely right. So we understand that, but Trevor was like especially beaten up last year. He had a knee, he had an ankle, he had a shoulder.
I mean, how many weeks did he not practice and then play the game?
Right, exactly.
Many.
Exactly. But basically half the season.
Yeah, yeah.
And that can't happen anymore. It can't. If he, look, I mean, knock on wood, cross your fingers, do all the things. But this is not just a Trevor thing, this is anybody across the league. if your franchise QB suffers like a freak injury, like a non-contact thing that nobody can do anything about, okay, like really sucks, but like no one really could have done anything about that. But to just continue to let your franchise guy get harassed and just get the hell beaten out of him every game to the point where you know he's going to get hurt. Like it's just not feasible that he's going to suffer all these hits and not get injured. You can't be stunned when his play dips. And Trevor's tough as hell. He stands in there. He takes hits. This is not a toughness thing for Trevor. It's just reality.
Yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't be shocking to people that when your right shoulder is injured as a quarterback in the NFL, your accuracy is going to suffer. Okay, it's not a coincidence to me that Trevor suffered that shoulder injury in the Bucs game. Okay, right before Christmas. So he finally took a game off against the Panthers, comes back against the Titans. His first game playing after suffering a right shoulder injury. It was by far his most inaccurate game of the year.
Yeah, he was one hopping like hitches, which is like...
He threw a terrible interception. I think it was over Calvin's head. And, I mean, Calvin could have been Calvin Johnson, and he's not catching this ball. It was way over his head and wasn't accurate. Trevor was really, like, misfiring a lot of throws, more than he normally does. You can't tell me that's a coincidence. It's right after he injures his shoulder.
And a lot of people will blame Press Taylor and the play calling and say it wasn't good and yada, yada, yada. Yes, okay, we all know that it's a results-oriented business, and if a play doesn't work, it's not a good play call, and if it works, it's good. When you have a bad offensive line, like, you know, we've seen the stats, how many times ETN broke a tackle behind the line of scrimmage. He, like, led the league, and I don't think it was close second. If you can't run the football... I'm sorry that you can't run the football, and then you can't run play action. So then the way that defenses face you is completely different as if you were to have a threat to run the football.
And by the way, too, you really can't run a whole, unless it's third and long and you have no choice, you really can't run along of a lot of long developing plays.
No, it's 2 seconds and out. So you got to have, everything's got to be 15 yards and in.
They had to throw a quick game the entire season. And remember, there was a period during the season where I want to say it was Nick Bosa said it from the Niners, and I think somebody else that the Jags were playing said something about it.
They're predictable.
And and it was about taking away Trevor's first read. And if you take away his first read,
I think it was Arden Key.
Yeah, and then Nick Bosa said something similar when they were about to play the Niners. And at the time, it was taken as, can Trevor not go through progressions? That's what the narrative took on. I always thought of it as, no, he can go through his progressions if he's not getting killed after he reads his first one. But if you have your first read, he's not open, and now somebody's on top of me. Yeah, I'm not going to be reading the rest of the play, dude. Right. Like what? Like obviously, and so. And tons of people were really upset about it throughout the season, and I was too, and I understand. They just constantly, all season, kept running these receiver screens, these bubble screens, and they were just not effective. And people were getting so mad at people on Twitter all the time. If you're at the game, you hear people complain about it all. Stop running these bubble screens. Stop running. They're running it because they have to. They are running it because they have to do everything possible to quickly get this ball away from the line of scrimmage because they're just getting totally dominated up front.
Yeah. So hopefully they can play games together and be in unison. I mean, I kind of wrote this down. Offensive line's kind of like basketball. You can have 5 guys, but they all got to work together. You know, you remember the Duke basketball team with Zion Williamson and them? I heard this on the radio. I forget who said it. It might have been like just some random caller. It don't matter what 5 guys you have. If they don't work together, like it's not going to be good. And offensive line, you got to work together. So Balky is putting his chips in the middle of the table, and we're going to roll with this. And
but you're right about sorry. I want to say one last thing on it. You're right about the running the ball aspect. In terms of the play calling, I promise you, if they start running the ball a lot more effectively. Even if it's Press Taylor, I promise you the play calling is going to look a lot better.
Everything opens up.
That I'm not saying Press Taylor should be here. I'm not saying he's Sean McVay. I'm not saying he's Andy Reid. I'm just telling you, and you said it, and I completely agree. It's very easy to get really mad at the play caller when the offense is not working well and plays are clunky and you're not getting in a rhythm. But I mean, watch the games. Watch it play by play. Like, on first and second downs, Jags are running the ball and they're getting stuffed 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And also, by the way, if you watch the plays as well, I'm not going to pretend I'm a running backs coach that knows about reading holes and where you're supposed to go. But it was obvious there wasn't a hole to read when Etienne was getting the ball. He's just getting destroyed by 2 guys behind the line of scrimmage. There's not what you can do about that unless you're Barry Sanders. Like, what are you supposed to do? As a play caller, like what would other people do? What was the solution? Because it seems like they tried a lot of stuff and it just didn't work.
No, it didn't. So, yeah, there's that. I guess it's safe to assume that they're not going to get a guard early in the draft.
No chance.
Also. So you can kill that pipe dream. All right, let's move on to the Gators. Big win against Alabama. Everybody kind of thought it was going to be a close game. Alabama's one of the highest scoring teams in the league.
Gators beat that ass.
In the SEC. And I think, they scored the most points in an SEC game at home since 1971 when they played Ole Miss. It was like 100 plus or something.
Hell yeah.
Game that I didn't really see coming. The first half was like kind of close. Like Bama wasn't hitting threes. And then Florida just goes on a run where like they just couldn't be stopped.
You know what was so refreshing about this game? The big Achilles heel of this team throughout this season so far is blowing leads. That's been their one problem, is they've had a bunch of games where they've gotten up, they've been playing really well on the road or at home. They've gotten up, 10 points, 12 points, whatever, and they'll be firmly in the driver's seat of a game with like 15 minutes to go and they'll blow it. Or even if they win, they'll let a team come back and it'll be anybody's game with a minute left when they should have had the game in hand. That was what I was worried about against Bama, because the game was close in the first half, you're right, but Florida was kind of always in the driver's seat. They were kind of always a step or two ahead. And then in the second half was when they really started getting rolling, like you're saying. That lead grows a little bit. It's 8 points, it's 10 points, it's 12 points. Like, all right. And I was just waiting because we know how well Bama can shoot threes. They're like the best 3-point shooting team in the country. I was just waiting. I was constantly just in the back of my head. I'm like, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Sears for them, their point guard is unreal. I was like, he's gonna hit a big 3 and they're gonna get going. All of a sudden, nobody's gonna be able to miss, and they're gonna storm back and either win, or it's gonna be anybody's game again with 2 minutes left. The problem with Florida, and the reason they've been blowing a lot of these leads as well, is Florida's one of the fastest paced teams in the country. That's how they score. They go quick. They go up and down the court. They don't let you breathe. And in games they've gotten up, they've slowed the tempo down to eat up clock, and they go on these scoring droughts because that's not how they normally play. What I loved on game was Tuesday, right? On Tuesday, they were playing with 10 minutes to go the same way they were playing 5 minutes into the game. Tempo, pace, push it, let's go. Foot on the throat, foot on the gas, let's keep scoring. No mercy. Like, that was beautiful to watch because it was clear that this was a problem they had dealt with early in the season, and you could very easily tell if you've been watching this team that Todd Golden saw that, knew it was a problem, addressed it, and his team responded, which this is the time of year your team needs to be responding to the coaching that they've been getting all year. It's perfect timing. They get a lead on one of the best teams in the country, and I'm telling you, man, did you watch the game? Did you watch a decent amount of it?
Yeah, I watched. Yeah, I didn't watch the last 10 minutes.
My favorite part was if Alabama score or not score, when Florida would get the ball back, they are pushing it up the floor. And they're not giving... Bama's already not a good defensive team, and they weren't giving Bama any chance to get set on defense and run anything and get into their stuff. They were just push. And with Walter Clayton Jr. and Zion Pullen and how athletic those guys are and the decision-making they can do and the ball handling on the open floor and the finishing and the size they have, man, when this team is on and when they keep pushing that pace like they should... I'm telling you, man, it's the most fun I've had watching Gator basketball in 10 years. It's 2024. The Final Four run was 14, right?
Yes.
I think it was 14 with Pat Young and Will You Get and Casey Prather and Scotty Wilbekin and those boys.
That was when they went to, I think, Dallas and played UConn.
Yeah, and Shabazz Napier went crazy on him. But one of the most devastating basketball games I've ever watched.
That was on Easter Sunday, too.
That and when they collapsed against Louisville. You remember the Louisville game? It was like 2012. It was a lot of those same guys.
Vaguely.
They were Florida was a 1 seed, and I think it was in the Elite Eight. Louisville went on to win the national championship that year. But anyway, this is the most fun I've had watching Gator basketball since that team. The 17 team that went to the Elite Eight with the Chioza buzzer, that team was fun, and the buzzer beater was like one of the best moments in Florida basketball history. But this team is more fun to watch. They're more explosive. They make more plays. They run more, and that's what's fun to watch is scoring and stuff. That 17 team was more tough defense type team. I love it. I like basketball a lot, but I will admit that I'm much more fair weather in basketball than I am in football. Football, Florida can be 0-8, and I'm still watching every snap. Basketball, if they're really struggling, I'll still watch, but if I miss a game or two, I don't really care. And they play a lot of games, so I won't care as much. This team, dude, I want to watch every single dribble of this team.
So tomorrow they play Vandy. Vandy's not good, and that'll be the end of the regular season. And then you go to the SEC tournament next week. Golly, so we have free agency, the SEC tournament, and the players in 1 week. I just thought about that.
This is March.
Tennessee will be the 1 seed, and then it'll be South Carolina, Auburn, Kentucky, Bama, and then Florida will probably be a 6 seed.
Yep.
So
I think Florida gets a single bye, I think.
Yes.
They get 1 bye.
Yeah.
They don't have to play the first round, but they'll have to play.
So where does Florida stand right now? I don't pay attention to bracketology stuff. Where does Florida stand right now as a seed, and then like kind of what do they have to do to? Because I saw something the other day they could get up to a 4.
That's probably aggressive. If they
do well, like if they could play in the SEC championship in the tournament.
If they did that, then that would be a possibility. It's not. I guess technically they could. I guess that's a ceiling because they could reach it potentially. But I don't anticipate that happening. They'd have to win some crazy games in the SEC tournament to do that. What I anticipate when it's said and done, I think they'll be at around like a 7 seed, 6 to 7 seed when it's all said and done and Selection Sunday is here. When, because there was a point in the year where they weren't a tournament team. And
they were on the bubble.
Right. And then they really started playing well. So they kind of worked themselves into like a 9-10 seed range. And then they really went on the tear.
They got those quad 1 wins.
Right. They got the quad 1s. Exactly. I know they lost the game, but they took Bama to overtime in Tuscaloosa. They just beat Bama at home, obviously. They beat Auburn. They beat Kentucky at Rupp, which is still their most impressive win of the season because Kentucky's playing really good ball now. So they go on that tear, and now they're where they are now, which is, I'd say, again, unless they make crazy noise in the SEC tournament, I'd say they are at best a 6 seed, at worst a 9. A 9 would be really, really low.
Tragic.
For this team. I think probably honestly lowest an 8 at this point. They're playing that well, especially after the Bama, because they murdered Bama. So I would say between 6 and 8, which is why I think a 7 is probably realistic.
All right, I gotcha. Free agency, the legal tampering period starts Monday. They can finalize everything on Wednesday. I'm kind of shocked at this point that we haven't got any deals done with quarterbacks. I know Russell Wilson, I think reportedly he spoke with the Giants. He's visiting the Steelers today. Nothing from Baker, still not final with anything from Tampa or anybody else. Kirk Cousins. The biggest thing for me, I've never understood the whole season, this whole Justin Fields thing. Oh, we're going to keep him. We might. They wanted a first rounder at one point in time, and that was because Chicago wanted that information out there. Nobody bid on it because you have to understand why information gets leaked. It's either the agent or it's the team, and that was obviously the team. The quarterbacks will probably fall first if I had to imagine next week. The most fascinating one would probably be Justin Fields, and the most fascinating team would probably be going to Atlanta. Whoever goes to Atlanta will probably if I had to assume right now, probably be the leader in the division because their team is like pretty good all around. They just don't have the quarterback. Like Desmond Ridder was average, below average at most times. Same with Taylor Heineke. And then you also got Saquon Barkley. Reports say that he met with the Eagles last week. Is there anybody that kind of really stands out even free agency next week? Like you're kind of eyeballing
for the Jaguars?
Just in general.
In general, yeah, the Fields thing is the biggest domino. I know he's not technically a free agent, but just in player movement in general. The other big quarterback domino that people are talking about, but I don't know if they're talking about quite enough, is Kirk Cousins. I'm curious to see what happens with Kirk. There's been some like kind of sidebar Kirk Cousins Atlanta rumors going on, which I think is interesting because I feel like we've kind of all just assumed that at some point, somehow, some way, Justin Fields is going to be in Atlanta this coming year. And that's mostly probably conjecture, I'm sure, just because he's from Georgia and all that. But Kirk Cousins, let's say the Jaguars needed a quarterback right now. Would you want Kirk Cousins or Justin Fields?
Kirk Cousins, not even close.
Not even close.
Think about this.
Post Achilles?
Think about this. It doesn't affect me because he's not a runner. I would be more alert if he was a runner. This is the thing. I saw something on Cowherd's show. It was like yesterday, the day before. He compared like all the quarterbacks in the division. It was Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, Jordan Love, and Justin Fields. Fields didn't even have the same touchdown passes as Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins didn't even play half the season. Think about that.
Wow.
So the thing that boggles me is like the whole offseason, it was like, we don't know if we want to draft Caleb or we want to keep both. I thought you draft Caleb number one. I don't care about all the Fred. You're always going to come to the point in the offseason after college football's done, and they're going to knock you regardless of how good you are. And I thought it was a foregone conclusion that they're going to get rid of Fields. Fields, to me, is just an athletic guy that can play quarterback. Like, I don't trust him to throw the ball in the pocket if you're down 10 points in a fourth quarter. I don't have trust in him that he can do that. Now you can blame, Chicago's never had a good quarterback. They've never had weapons on the outside. It's just kind of like their team culture and their DNA. You could blame that, but I don't see where if I'm Atlanta, I say, okay, if I bring Justin Fields in, sure, I could go to the playoffs with him, but what can I do in the playoffs? And I think that I would be more confident in Kirk Cousins than Justin Fields.
If Lamar Jackson struggles as much as he does in the playoffs, I think it's fair to say that you probably expect Fields to have similar results, if not worse. Because Lamar Jackson is probably the best version of what a Justin Fields type of player can be. And he's really struggled in the playoffs his whole career. Yeah. So I agree. So that said, it's Kirk Cousins, no question. Because to be fair, Kirk hasn't had much playoff success either.
Well, and what's crazy to me is like with the Fields thing is like the GM Ryan Poles is acting like there's a market out there for him, and he was saying he's willing to wait for Russell Wilson and all these other quarterbacks to find their team before Justin Fields is traded and can go somewhere. Like, nah, man, if you can get a third for Justin Fields and somebody's there, like, I take that now.
Yeah, I would too. I agree.
Like now, and I'm not waiting. Like I would be on the phone right now and do it, not waiting. Hey, what's Kurt? What's these other guys? That would be the first thing I'm doing.
You just said another name that's going to be really interesting to see what happens. I don't know if this name carries a lot of weight across the league in terms of what the ripple effect he'll have, but I'm just interested to see. What do you think happens with Russell Wilson?
He'll go somewhere. I don't see him starting I don't see him sitting the bench. I've seen that rumor. Dude, I don't see that.
Is he like the biggest fall from grace in NFL history?
Certainly one of them.
Because I don't just mean the player, because like obviously the production on the field is the most important part, but I'm also talking like in terms of like image of like how he's perceived. Because dude, there was a time in Seattle where the general narrative on him was, oh, this great guy, this, I know it matters to a lot of people, this Christian guy, and the Go Hawks at the end of all the interviews, a team first dude, and look at how great he is to Sierra after her relationship with Future and all this stuff. He was like Mr. America at one point.
He threw the prettiest deep ball at one point in time,
and
for a couple of years,
and he was universally loved. And most people at the time either didn't know about or didn't make a huge thing of like a lot of the rumors and stuff of like Richard Sherman and him not getting along, and a lot of that defense not being a huge Russell Wilson fan, and some of the issues with Pete Carroll. It seemed like a lot of that stuff came out once he was gone from Seattle and went to the Broncos. But I mean, think about everything the Broncos gave up in terms of what they paid him and the trade compensation.
Picks. It's unbelievable.
And so what does that tell you? That tells you that was a pretty damn desirable player. And dude, now you could sign him for
next to nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, not nothing, but a couple $1 million. Which,
not a lot.
Which 2 years ago, he was like 40 to 50.
Yeah, exactly. That is he like other than somebody other than like an OJ or whatever, where they got in like real legal trouble instead of Anna Hernandez. Like those are obviously exceptions to this, so I'm taking them out. But just in terms of like, because of locker room stuff and rumors and drama,
like accumulation of everything.
Yeah, and then the lack of production on the field, which is by far the most important thing. I really think he might be the biggest fall from grace in the NFL.
I'm trying to think of like free agents that signed a massive deal and did nothing. Like I wasn't old enough to remember, but Albert Hainsworth, when he went, I think was it Tennessee?
Yeah, and he couldn't pass the conditioning test.
Yeah, like he got just a ginormous deal. The biggest thing with Russ is like,
and these are guys, by the way, I'm also talking, sorry to cut you off, that have had success in the league. These aren't like draft busts, because we never knew if they were going to be good in the league.
Yeah, these were the best of their position, the best in the league, and
like
then fell
Jamarcus
off.
Russell type guys are also in a different category. No. I'm talking were stars in the league, and then for whatever reason just fell off the face of the earth.
And a lot of fans go, well, he was so good because of that defense. Even if you watch like after Sherman left and a couple of those guys on the defense left, there was a time. It was the year they played Dallas in the playoffs. It might have been like 18 or 19. He had the worst offensive line. He literally had 0 run game, and he had something just stupid of like 40 touchdowns and like 5 picks.
Dude, he was unbelievable.
Like it was insane.
And when you were talking about in that same exact time frame, when you were discussing best quarterbacks in the league, his name always came up. Not as the best, obviously, because Mahomes was starting to come on. Mahomes was starting to come on at that point. Brady was still around. So like those guys were like the top. But yeah, you didn't get much further than 4th, 5th range before you said Russell Wilson's name.
Yeah, and the most glaring thing for me is that Sean Payton comes, and I thought the Broncos were going to be a playoff team. You always have a team that's terrible, and then they always make an improvement. Like it was Houston last year. It was the Giants a couple of years ago. I thought it was going to be Denver last year. And when Sean Payton, I've heard this about Sean Payton, according from national guys, that once he makes his mind up, like there's no changing his mind. And that was why they made the move that they did toward the end of the season. They started Jarrett Stidham. They're like, we're done. We don't care. We're moving on. We don't even care if we have a chance to make the postseason. So that the fact that he couldn't work with Sean Payton, one of the better guys in the league, kind of means that, okay, like how good are you now, even if we give you everything that you want?
And the narrative last year at the beginning of the season, whenever Sean Payton was hired, the narrative was that Sean Payton was hired to fix Russell Wilson. And at the time, because there's always a fall guy. Everybody always wants a fall guy. Fall guy last year was Nathaniel Hackett. Oh, Nathaniel Hackett was just terrible. This is the worst coach I've ever seen. He's awful. And that's why Russell Wilson was so bad. It became pretty clear by about midway through the year that was no longer the narrative. The narrative was that Sean Payton was just surviving until they could get rid of Russell Wilson and just existing through these next couple of months so they could get him the hell out of the door and then actually move forward with something he believes in, which was not Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
So it's crazy, man. Like, where do you think he'll go?
Everybody's leaning Pittsburgh, and not just because he's visiting there. Like, that culture, it just seems like to fit him better than it would in Atlanta or the Giants. I mean, the Giants still got Daniel Jones, and they got, what, $40 million, whatever that is. That's a massive deal that they got to eat if they want to bring him in.
Players have gotten so much smarter, and their agents as well have gotten so much smarter about when they do these deals, making sure their guaranteed money is a whole lot higher. For a long time, teams would just trick players with these big numbers of what a contract is worth. And players started to realize that doesn't mean anything. It means literally nothing. What a deal, like Ezra Cleveland just got signed, that the deal is worth $28.5 million. If Ezra Cleveland gets paid $28.5 million throughout the course of that deal, that means he was like a Pro Bowler, which is fine with me.
Yeah, like his deal is basically like a lot of incentives.
It's a ton of incentives. He's only guaranteed like half of it.
Yeah.
But quarterbacks and guys in the league that command big money and know how valuable they are to teams that are wanting them have gotten a lot smarter about shrinking that gap dramatically between what they're guaranteed and what the overall value of their contract is. And that's what has pigeonholed the Broncos so hard with the Russell deal, is so much of it is guaranteed. It's the same thing with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson has the only fully guaranteed contract in the history of the NFL. And he hasn't been good in years.
No.
He hasn't been good in forever.
Yeah, that's another team that needs...
he has not played good football since, what, 2019?
Yeah, before COVID.
Because wasn't right around COVID when he requested the trade and he got in trouble and everything?
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't played good ball since then.
No.
At least ball that's what we knew Deshaun Watson as. He's played serviceable ball here and there, but he hasn't been Deshaun Watson since then. That's insane, dude. Dude, these quarterback dominoes are just wild, man. Like, it's kind of crazy because I feel like we've been out of this conversation for so many years now because of Trevor. But like, could you imagine being in the market for a free agent QB right now and all the stuff you have to give up? In terms of,
we did it with Nick Foles, 5 years ago?
Yeah,
and we gave up a lot, and
you know that's
moved on like that.
It's interesting you bring that up, dude. That Nick Foles contract, because it was big money at the time, and it was only like 5 years ago. It wasn't that long ago.
That was 2019.
Yeah, dude, that contract is pennies now. That contract is nothing. It was $80 million in total.
I think it was 4 years, 3 years, one of the two.
Something like that, yeah. And it was like $20 million per year. Quarterbacks are making like 50 now, man.
Yeah, Dak is getting that much.
That deal is pennies now.
Yeah.
It is pennies, bro.
All right, let's move on to a fun topic. I got one, you got one. Did you see the big news for the college football EA Sports game? They came out with something earlier this morning.
This morning? No, I haven't seen that.
There will not be a College Football Awards Association. They have decided to opt out of it. So the game won't be the same without the Maxwell Award and the Biletnikoff Award. And
so there's no Heisman?
I didn't even know that was on there beforehand.
The only reason I knew that was, at the end of the season, if you do like Dynasty mode and you have a tight end or whatever, it'll say they
won an award.
Yeah,
I guess I skipped that part.
That's all it is, though. It doesn't. The gameplay and stuff doesn't change.
Yeah, I saw people making fun of that.
What's the point of opting out of that?
Naming rights, legal. I don't know.
You know what is interesting though? On a more serious note about this, I do think that in a couple years after we get a couple games and this plays out some, this game is going to be a super interesting case study on not just NIL and NIL value and what it's actually worth, but like kind of what that means in general in terms of like how important players, teams, I guess awards think of themselves and how much they think they're worth versus how much they actually are. Because you just said it. They're not going to be in the game because they opted out, and I'm sure it's because of money. They don't think they're getting paid enough to be in it. You don't care. I don't care.
I don't think
who the hell playing the game cares?
Nobody under the sun cares that there's not going to be an award.
Not at all. And like the Arch Manning thing, opting out, I bet Arch Manning thought in the back of he'll never admit to this, but I bet he thought in the back of his mind that people are going to be stunned that he opted out. No one cares, bro. You don't even start. You don't even start for your own school. Shut up, man. Opting out,
when you can create a player and easily be the same.
We live in a world where a college kid is saying no to a free video game and $600.
Yeah.
Where the hell have we gone in society? You know what I would have done in college for a free video game and $600?
And you would have bought it all in Checkers and gotten 800 chicken bite
boxes. Dude, that's like a semester's worth of chicken bite box, bro. God, hell yeah, I would have done that.
Jeez.
Come on, man.
All right, what you got? What was your...
It was something you sent me earlier this week, actually. I wanted to go in further detail on the pod. Let me switch over. I'm on 1010XL's Instagram right now. This is great podcasting. Let's see here.
Yeah, how many accounts do you have? I have 3 Twitters that I run.
Just 2.
2? Okay.
Across basically every social, I just have my own and 1010s.
Okay.
It was from what you sent me about Joy Taylor earlier this week. Oh, it was on her story, so I guess it's I guess it's deleted. Now. So, but we know what it was about. Basically, Joy Taylor posted a reel where she was talking with some other ladies on a pod.
I think it was her and Joy. God bless. Jeez, I know who it is.
It's the girl from ESPN.
Yes. Right? No, she's not with ESPN. She's with TNT. I'll find a second. Go ahead.
But basically,
Taylor Rooks.
Yes. Yeah. Basically, Joy said on the podcast, she was like, because Joy Taylor is single, and she was saying, in guys I'm potentially dating and looking into, like, I want him to have friends that are girls. She's like,
I had female friends.
Yeah, female friends. She said, I don't want a guy that has no female friends because if we're arguing or whatever, I don't want the friends he talks to about it to only be from male perspectives. I want him to have female friends that can give him female perspectives so that he is more well-rounded. Basically, we're paraphrasing.
Yeah, like you want advice on like other things rather than just the males and then your mom or aunt or whoever is in your life.
The sense I got was she was saying that basically to just say, look how non-jealous I get. And it was almost a flex of saying, I never get jealous. That's kind of the vibe I got. What are your thoughts?
Number one, I don't know any man that has many female friends.
Straight man.
Just because like you can't, we all know in the back of your mind that like something could potentially happen, and then man, you know how it is with females. Females get so jealous of other females quick.
I just think
and men are not like that.
I just think it's the dynamic of more often than not, and this can go for anybody, if 2 people are friends and they are both single and what they prefer aligns. So if it's a straight man, straight woman, whatever it is, chances are, and they're both single again, chances are one person is at least mildly interested. And the other person may not be at all.
But one person is.
One person is maybe in the deepest, furthest back part of their mind. Maybe they never act on it. But in the deepest, furthest back part of their mind, they're thinking maybe something.
Like if the thought was brought up and it was it was asked,
they ain't saying no.
Yes,
they ain't saying
correct.
No. Yeah,
and I think she said that because like you only say that because of what's happened in your past. Like the version of you right now is kind of what you have been like your whole life. So if you don't like in business, if you have a person that is, pushy and always aggressive, then you want to, all right, we want somebody different. Then you want somebody that's conservative. Like you have that cycle. It's kind of the same thing in relationships. Like what you have in the past is something, you want something different in the next person.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if like all the previous people that she's been with have not had female friends, and that's why she's saying that. Like that still kind of doesn't make sense to me why she like, but it wasn't that she said it, she was so adamant about it.
Yeah, I also think, at least for me, like in my friends, the way I think about it is like, first of all, I don't really have all that many female friends that aren't that aren't either Mal's friends, my fiance, who you know, obviously,
Or you've known your whole life.
or I've known my whole life, or coworkers that are just coworkers that I happen to be friends with, or like just stuff like that. Like, I don't have a lot of just female friends just because, you know, like friends I had in college that I still keep up with, or in high school or whatever, because typically my interests align with dudes. So that's who I want to spend. If it's not my fiance, because obviously I am very emotionally invested in her, if I'm spending time with other people that are friends, I want to spend time with people that have the same interests as me. You and I are friends because we like sports. We play.
That's how guys bond,
right?
If we don't have common interests, no guy friendship's gonna last.
Because guys, the way guys hang out is we hang out by doing stuff, right?
Yes.
Girls, women, and again, this is just
generalizing.
We are very well aware this is not every woman and every man, just on a bell curve, right? A lot of women can have a perfectly fun time together, just talking drama, whatever.
I call it a carcucci board. That's what the Jets call it. They get a carcucci board, right, and then they have their girls' night.
If you and I are hanging out, we're playing basketball, we're playing video games,
golfing,
we're watching a game, we're doing a thing, right? And most of those things that I like to do, typically the people that like to do them are men. Now, again, not always, but that's just me. So I tend to think that what Joy Taylor's saying, I get her point, but I don't know if that's really honestly all that realistic.
No, I don't think it is either.
I mean, I'll ask you, do you have a bunch of girlfriends?
No. Like, I hang out with my 5-6 dudes. I play Call of Duty with a couple dudes. That's it. I mean, I'm more of a good time kind of guy. I like having fun. Here's the thing, too. When multiple guys are hanging out and there's no women, the IQ in the room goes down substantially.
Yes, correct.
And when that happens is when fun stuff happens. Think of all the memories you have with your boys. Think about the memories you have with Dalton.
It's all doing dumb stuff.
It's all doing the most ridiculous things where you're like, I don't know how we made it out here alive. And damn, it's a good story. And that wouldn't happen if a woman was around.
So that sparked a memory of mine that I'll tell because this fits this story perfectly.
All right, we'll end with this.
One of my favorite memories from when I was I think we were in elementary school. Me and a couple of buddies. It's guys you know, but a lot of listeners may not know. Where I grew up in Queens Harbor, so had a really rough and tough childhood.
Yeah.
In the mean streets of the ghetto Queens Harbor. But we lived on the golf course side. God, that sounds so privileged. So we lived on the golf course side. But anyway,
the opposite side of the boat.
Right. One of the holes was behind our house, like we had our backyard, and behind that was one of it was hole 17 in Queens Harbor. A lot of you guys may have played it. We're outside playing basketball in my driveway, and it's three of us who are just like, you know what? Let's go streaking.
In the pond?
No, we take all our clothes off. We're only in our shoes. We got nothing on but our tennis shoes, and we just start running down the golf course, just butt naked.
This is at night?
Yeah, it's like 10 o'clock at night.
Golly. And y'all are in 5th grade?
Something like that.
So you're probably like 11, 12 years old?
Yeah, something like that. But that's just a perfect example we were talking about. Like, it's just dudes being stupid, bro.
And all it takes is just one stupid person, and then one person backs it, and then everybody else does it.
Intelligent friends are the friends you want when you have actual real life things you need. But if you want to have a good time, hit up your dumbest friends.
Yes, that's essentially the pod. If you want to have a fun time, don't hang around with women, hang around dudes. The IQ will drop substantially, and you'll have a good time. Essentially, I don't know. That's all I got. Everybody have a good weekend. I'm done. It's Friday. It doesn't even feel like Friday to me.
It does not. A slammed morning, dude. I got this thing now where Friday has just become one of my busiest days of the week.
Pod after pod.
It's a pod heavy day. I do a lot of sales on Friday too. So, dude, Fridays have just been slammed for me, which I don't love. I don't love Friday being a busy day. Friday needs to be a fun, chill day.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a pod on Thursday, but when I got track meets, man, I gotta be at track meet Thursdays, you know. So.
Oh yeah, I hear the 4x1 team.
Hey man, we are zooming, son. We are zooming. We got a second fastest time in the state in 2A right now.
What about the 4x4 squad?
So get this. We have the 12th fastest time in the state, and we're 5th in the district. Think about that.
Hell yeah.
So Rains, Ribault, Paxson, maybe one of the private schools, Bishop Kenny Episcopal, and then us. So it used to be, they changed the rule where it used to be top 4 in the district, move on to regionals. Last year, the 4x4, all 4 teams in the district finished top 10 in the state.
Wow.
So if you didn't make top 4, like, you didn't make it. So last year was 3rd, 4th, 5th. We're all within a second, and the 5th got left home. They were like one of the best times in the state.
This is the 4x4.
Yes,
not 4x1.
Yes, correct. 4x4.
Is it the same dudes running? A lot of times the same guy.
One of them.
Yeah.
But
is he your anchor?
They changed it. Now he's my second guy. Second 4x1, second about 4x4. They changed it to where you get more of an at-large. So if you're in a tough district, they look at the region, kind of like what football does now in high school football. So we have a chance now. But, I mean, I'm super excited, man. Like, we saw the time, and I was jumping with the kids. I said, if I just ran. I mean, we have the most time we've ever had in the school. I know nobody really cares about ball and track, but, I mean, it's
that's why people tune in, man. What are you talking about?
I mean, yeah. Those 13 seconds I get on Jaguars today. Anyway, y'all have a good rest of your weekend. Denmark and Marsh. Get us on Twitter at 1010XL. Denmark and at 1010XL. Graham. And y'all have a good weekend.